hottest music, all the songs you grew up with, and all your new favorite artists. All on one station for the
101.5 FM.
I am so honored. Today we have an amazing person. Someone who I actually known for a very long time. But outside of just knowing this individual, he has helped a community advance. And we're going to get into his story, just being a leader in a community and making change. His name is Mr. Kevin Muhammad. And just to tell you a little bit about Mr. Kevin Muhammad, he grew up, he's Jamaican, but he grew up in Connecticut. He has his bachelor's degree, master's degree in education. He has a 6-year educational degree, which is what I just earned last year. He is also working on his dissertation for his doctorate. And he was a school principal. He started out as a teacher. He also has advanced to becoming a principal, leading a school, and had some challenges, and now is back on the rise with his own business and still a principal and doing much social advocacy in the community. Welcome to the CHYNA NICOLE Show on 101.5 FM.
Thank you for having me, CHYNA. Thank you.
Does it feel different calling me CHYNA?
You adjust to the occasion. And I know that we wear many hats. And whether we're in education or the field of entertainment industry, we wear many hats. So this is a hat you're wearing, so I dress you in the right hat at this time.
I'm pulling down. Right. Okay. So, yes, because actually CHYNA was given to me in high school. Name, but anyway,
okay.
Yeah, it was. So let's talk about your early beginnings. Talk about where you were born and some highlights in your childhood.
Right. Both of my parents were from Jamaica. I actually was born in Bridgeport.
You were born in Bridgeport?
I was born in Bridgeport.
Okay.
The hospital no longer exists, Park City Hospital.
Okay.
And I was back and forth between Bridgeport and Jamaica. But my parents were Jamaican, meaning that I didn't even know that there was an opposite culture until I went to kindergarten. Our pronunciation of words, the foods we ate, they were, at that time in the 70s, Jamaicans stuck together. And so you had Jamaican friends, Jamaican community, Jamaican dance parties. We pretty much grew up in that kind of culture.
So you talk about, was it a difficult transition? That you were back and forth, and you like you just mentioned, it was a close-knit family, and Jamaicans stuck together. Right. So did students see you as Jamaican or American? And was that
growing up, I remember I was on the bus, went to St. Ambrose, and I was misbehaving on the bus. So 1 or 2 days, the bus driver didn't pick me up, and I forgot he had given me a slip. That's how they suspended you from the bus. And so my mother shows up, and she starts to go at the bus driver, and she says, "How come you not pick up my son?" He said, "Your son was suspended from the bus." And she said, "Boy, I'm going to box you." Pow! And then the whole bus started laughing. And every day I got on the bus, I heard, "Come back to Jamaica."
You know what, though? That was a nice commercial.
But it was embarrassing.
That commercial was nice, but anyway, yeah. So your mom embarrassed you in front of the all the kids, and that's how they knew that you were of Jamaican descent.
Right. That's how they found out. Through my mother who has accent day.
Right. So they considered you Jamaican. Just like my friends did. Right, they considered me Jamaican, even though in Jamaica they consider me America.
Exactly.
It's weird.
It's tough because you're not Jamaican enough in Jamaica, and you're not American enough in America, so you it was a group called the Born Jamaicans, and I understood. Right, I remember them. I understood. I was more of a Jamaican, but the culture I adapted to it, and I just had to accept that I'm, grew up here, but from Jamaican parents.
Right. Okay, so talk about your early influences in social advocacy, because you are a prolific speaker.
Thank you.
If you haven't heard Kevin Muhammad, he is the truth. I mean, you can go see him advocate for so many different groups, including, children that's been murdered, from police brutality to just the crime in itself and all of the disparities and happening to our Black culture. So talk about who influenced you when you were growing up.
It's funny. I'm catching the vibe in the studio. All these wonderful pictures of reggae artists. I see a drum. Yeah. And it's very dear to me, African drum. I've been seeing a shaker.
Why is the drum very dear to you? Linkage is the owner of the drummer. He's a musician.
Oh, okay. It just is. Whenever I hear a drum, like a Congo drum, it's spiritual. It reaches the crown of my head. And I remember, hearing Bob Marley, and the song when he would talk about, I heard of the Rastaman say, Babylon, you're gone thrown down, you're thrown gone down, Babylon, you're thrown gone down. And then I would hear doom, doom, ga, doom, doom. And so the drum, Burning Spirit, that's the music I grew up with. My father used to play reggae music in the house. So it was always Bob Marley, Burning Spear, Johnny Clark. It was the real Dennis Brown, Jacob Miller. It was the real revolutionary. And when you're 4 and 5, that music just sits in your soul, Sugar Minott, whoever he played. Yep. So that was my biggest influence. And then as I got to high school, and I went to Colby Cathedral, I started
Where we
reading.
met? Don't say the years.
Well, I got Revolution.
Catholic high school.
Right. At Revolutionary, I started to read. My brother was a Rastafarian, so we would vibe off of each other and talk about.
Was he
about
born
the
in
ancient.
America?
No, my older brother was actually born in Jamaica, St. Andrew, where my mother was from.
Okay.
And he came over at 12 years old. Okay. For the most part, I was influenced by those things, and then, I took liking to Marcus Garvey. I read a book called Marcus Garvey's Philosophy and Opinions.
In high school?
Yes.
Who gave you that book to read?
I was smuggled from another brother who was a barber of mine. His name was Sean.
Sean, big up to Sean.
Yeah, Sean. And also, I
he
read.
was part of a hip hop group.
Yes, he's Skinny Boys.
Skinny Boys. Big up to Sean.
So that along with, I was reading books on Malcolm X on my own, and just getting really strong in self. And my mother and father they were upset. They thought that I was deviating from my Christian background. And I really was deviating for that reason. I was just getting stronger in my culture.
Would you, Sean, had an influence on your spiritual connection?
Very much so. Because
so it was your barber.
He was my barber.
I know in school, I thank Mr. Darrell, who was an English teacher, for letting me see Raisin in the Sun, because I didn't get a lot of that black literature,
right,
so to speak,
mm-hmm.
and not in school.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, so we would talk about it all the time. And I was I was just about to become a Rastafarian. And so he made a joke with me. He said, and no disrespect to the Rastafarian community, but I said, well, I think Selassie is the way. And he said, well, I wish he would come back and help us, because we need somebody living to deal with the condition. And that's when that time I got connected with the Nation of Islam, and I kind of took on that for many years. But I visited the 12 Tribe Church, the Rastafarian Church in New York. But I became almost militant, very militant. I needed a school. I needed people like me. But I never stopped going to school, going to college. But I was so militant that I just wouldn't talk to anybody who wasn't talking about revolution.
Isn't that
That's
something?
where I was. I had to find balance sooner or later, but that's.
So you learned about Malcolm X in high school.
Yes.
And you gravitated to just trying to find yourself,
right,
and you just noticed that they stood for something. And then
they
did the Nation of Islam,
right,
or the Rastafarian community.
Right.
You just felt that they, from my understanding.
Yes, just locking hands with people arm in arm that were about upliftment of our people. And just reading a lot of biographies, autobiographies, anything I could get my hand on that would inspire me and uplift me, and leaders who did things.
So what made you decide that you wanted to be a teacher? Was that your first goal as you were growing up, to say, when I grow up, I want to be a teacher?
Absolutely not. It was about 1992. At that time, I was working. I was in my mosque, and I was working with a young group of young men. And I noticed that I had a knack. And then I met a good friend by the name of Garrett Campbell, Jamaican, came over here, wanted to get into education. He had a Christian, coming out of church, he had a Christian youth group called Zion Academy, but he was too militant in his church, because he was in the church, but he also was a big fan of Malcolm X as well. So we connected on Sacred Heart University campus. Every Saturday it started with 20, then 40, then 50 young people. And so we brought that kind of, he brought Christianity, I brought the kind of militant side, and we merged and we clicked. We must have done that for 6 or 7 years. And that inspired me to get into education. So
when you when these met, were you the speaker, like a keynote speaker?
No, I became a speaker because I took on a leading position in my religious house, in the mosque, and I stuttered. So what I would do, I got a tape recorder, and I would listen to myself speak, and I noticed I had to slow down. So I actually kind of fumbled over my speech, and I would practice, and I was always extreme in what I do. So I would make tapes of myself speaking, and I would critique it, and then after I noticed that I'm pretty good at this, and then my mosque would send me out in the community to deal with different issues for interviews, issues of police brutality, and then I just became a person who spoke in the community, and that was around 92, 93.
At that time, you were transforming into a teacher, becoming a teacher?
Yes, at that time I was substituting, working in education, and then around...
So education found you?
Education found me, yeah, and I loved working with children, so from then on, it was always education and children.
Tell us about some highlights in your teaching career.
I was nominated Teacher of the Year. Didn't win in 1997.
That's hard to get nominated. It's all about you. So,
It is.
Congratulations for that nomination.
Thank you. But at the same time, I consider educating my community as well. So I took place picked up a lot of awards, from the community. But I became a teacher leader at Harding High School in Bridgeport, and they pushed me into. We had a plan. We were saying, okay, we got to get more black educators. You go first. You become an administrator, and you go get the rest of us. So we had one of those underground meetings. We called ourselves MAIN, Making an Impact Now.
Really?
And I also joined the Afro-American Educators Association. I was vice president of that, of the city of Bridgeport. They wanted me to be president, but I shied away from it because I was not confident. I thought I was too young.
Vice president's name of the group?
Afro-American Educators Association. It was originally started in the 70s, but they reactivated it around the late 90s. And I was vice president, along with the president who passed away, Mr. Tinkler, who was the former president of Roosevelt School, and then Mr. Arrington, who now works at Fairchild Wheeler in administrative capacity. So I was, they weren't as militant-minded, and I thought that I was a little bit too extreme, that I should fall back a little bit. People wanted me in leadership, but then I took a secondary role, and the group fizzled out. So I was, those are the things, and I started to attend classes at University of Bridgeport. In 2005, I got my 6th year, and I went straight into...
Okay, so the community may not know what an educational leadership degree is, which is what I just got, and I'm very proud of it because it took me later on, you got yours early.
Right.
So explain the power of having that.
It transforms you. It makes you to look at education on a different level, as an organizational way, organizational structure, where you have people in place, you have a goal, you have to find the right people to put it in place. So you go from in a classroom to how am I going to multiply my ideas to a school, to a district. Matter of fact, what are my ideas? I've been in the classroom, but I may not know my ideas of educating children. So it makes you to come up with your philosophical, theoretical approach, your viewpoint. What do I believe about myself and about children? And so you specify that as you go on to education leadership. And then you can become a school leader, principal, supervisor, superintendent.
Thank you for sharing that. So when you became the administrator, were you still in Bridgeport?
Yes.
And do you feel you had support in that you had this underground meeting with these friends, and even the group kind of fizzled out? Still, you had so many people, from my understanding, that was really for you going next level to make some change in this community.
Yeah, it's tough.
Did you have that support in Bridgeport?
I did. It's tough because you go from being your camaraderie, now you're supervising them. And now you're watching what time they come in, if they fill out paperwork, if you're observing them, you're giving them critiques. So now you're moving. And some people say, you know what, he thinks he's too good. And, for every level of that you raise up, you lose some friends. And so it was tough. That's why I decided, I had to leave. And then when the opportunity came to go to another town, another district, I took it.
And that is very common for administrators to move to another district, or leaders in the system, I would say, school leaders, to move to another district for just to serve another community and to get, in a sense, a different identity. Because sometimes when you're in the same, people like you said, they probably will own you as that teacher, then see you transform as you took all that coursework, work, and education to become an administrator and school leader. All right, so you took the New Haven, and in New Haven, for the most part, you did well. I mean, you supervised how many kids and faculty altogether?
Well, it had to be, I would say, 40, 50 people.
And the school population, how many?
School population probably was about 700 or so children.
Okay. And you mentioned that you said the word extreme a couple of times. And do you feel because you were so militant and because you have this self-identity and kind of know where you should lead a school and had your own vision, that you didn't feel supported in that environment?
Well, I remember one day being called in by superintendent and supervisor telling me that I put up all big, large logos of Africa with Marcus Garvey's flag, like red, black, and green. I guess that was militant for them. But I used the principles of what's called the Nguzu Saba. Saba means 7. Nguzu just means principles. Originally brought in by a gentleman who started Kwanzaa. His name will come to me, but it's not on the tip of my tongue. Malana Karenga, who I was blessed to meet in person, sat a round table with. And Malana Karenga came up with these principles that black children, black families should use: unity, collective responsibility, self-work and determination, and those kinds of principles. And I knew there was an academic side approach, but I wanted some kind of moral and ethical approach, and I chose his.
Right.
Of course, he instituted Kwanzaa. So every day there would be a principle. If I wanted unity, and I would say to them, okay, today's Emoja for the next few days or next month,
right,
and we're going to try to work together as a staff, let children work together.
And that's what principals and school leaders do to build a culture. I just applied it for part-time job as administrator in the city. And you have to come with a vision, and there's a lot of issues with the culture and the climate in the school system. So what you were trying to do was give them a sense of who they were as mostly predominantly black urban district in poverty. We can safely say that. And from what I'm hearing and from what I know about you, that these particular pillars, if you will, they were to help build a climate of support and achievement in your school system, in your school building. And from my understanding, it looked upon as you were trying to make this like extreme transformation and converting them to Muslims. They mixed, from my understanding.
I was talking one day to superintendent. Actually, he said children learn out this Arabic. He wasn't against it, but he wanted to clarify. They say Arabic, and I think I was teaching the children to become Muslims or whatever, and one person implied I kept a Quran in my office on top hidden,
but that's
and somebody felt intimidated by it. I had a picture actually of Minister Farrakhan and in my office that I would put there, and that was an issue. These things were brought to me, so already I was seen as a little extreme for politically.
Did you try to comply? Like take down and friends, I'm just being a journalist here because I have my own opinions. So did you try to take down the Farrakhan picture and the Quran that you had up to kind of mesh and integrate with the culture that the system wanted you to put for the school that you were leading?
Yes, I did. I instituted some things. I researched that the ACLU and others said it was okay for you. The people came to me. They did certain things around Christmas. I think they had a march around Halloween that they used to do traditionally with the former principal. And they came to me and I said, if we're going to institute any of those things, let's do it all the religious holidays. So I checked with the ACLU and laws.
ACLU?
The ACLU is the American Civil Liberties Union.
Okay.
And they make sure that people's rights aren't violated. So we decided, I said, okay, let's celebrate it all. I mean, let's teach about it. Let's educate our young people. And so there was a little hold with that, because now they have to talk about not only Christmas but Ramadan and then Passover and all of that. Let's educate our children, and then I found that maybe I should take the Quran down, because if I had the Quran, maybe I should have a Torah, maybe I should have a Bible. So I started to get really careful about what the rights were, what I was portraying. Was I being biased? I told the supervisor that 90% of our children are black. That's why I decided, and we often use the N-word. We often don't know our culture and history. And this might be a way for children to find out who they are. But she said, but your teaching staff is not 90% black. So what are you going to do for this? So the next year I decided a tree with all of the teachers and pictures of the teachers so that they could see themselves on the walls when they came in. So I tried to curve, and I think sometimes when we comply, we kind of lose ourselves. We get weakened. You know, there's a study called theology, which says that when you say something and you don't mean it and you're weak, your physical muscles, your nerves get weak. You can get sick. And so you find that if you're in a place that's not vibing with what you stand for, I believe God makes the circumstances to get you out of there. Sometimes by circumstances that seem troubling at first, but in the long run, you're a lot happier and you're a lot more fulfilled. So, you know, that situation was short-lived.
And, well, I want to say that, first of all, kudos to you.
Thank you.
For trying to connect with the population and the students, which we all preach and learn and say time and time again. It's about students. It's student focused. It's student centered. It's all about students. And here it is. That what you were trying to do, and yet they're telling you that the faculty was not black, and you had to get your faculty,
right.
And it should be about the children,
right.
And the children should have self-identity and awareness.
Right.
So that was short-lived. And I want to tell you, though, that New Haven has been good to me in a sense that a school that I worked with under Dr. Tracy was international.
Right.
Children left the classrooms to go pray. If they were Muslim, I had all kinds of kids in
my daughter attended that school, by the way.
Hi, your daughter. What's her name?
Marianne.
Marianne. She wasn't my student, but hello, Marianne.
Right. Yeah.
Links to her and her beautiful little life. I know she's brilliant. And what was great about school is they celebrated individuality. And had a whole, Dr. Tracy is a genius in her own right.
Right.
Jamaican from Mandeville, and who was my mentor for a long time in the public school system. And that philosophy allowed children to be able to rope their identity embedded in the curriculum, which they saw themselves. We had books that, and of course, there's always room for improvement, but it was wonderful in that sense. And I think that had you been at a school like that, maybe things would have been a little differently because of their philosophy. Right. International Baccalaureate, and I know they have that here in New York too. So I just wanted to put that out there. Now, so you face some challenges, and there's political ties in many school systems. I mean, we learned that in the whole American educational system was brought up in from bureaucracies to all of this the political arena was overseeing the American school system developed, and how the educational system has, I want to say this word, I'm going to say it, raped the cultures of the Indian population, right, of African, so they imposed their philosophy from England. Absolutely. And so that comes into play still. And we're talking about years and years ago, hundreds of years ago. Exactly. So these challenges into political ties, you want to talk briefly about that, the political ties, and how there were some mishaps with your career in that particular school system? Yeah, absolutely. Because your personal business is your personal business. Exactly. So, for whatever reasons, the school that I was in, of course, I was given 2 years. If the school did not perform at a certain level, test scores wise, I was on my way out. But of course, I did have some challenges there. I did have some problems, and I resigned as a result. And the issue was some issues that I had beyond the school, after school hours, that it was seen as unethical. And so I had made deals with the administrative union that I should resign. Do you think it was a ploy because of your philosophy? And I think. Let me say this.
I can't blame anyone else. I take full responsibility for anything that I have myself, and resulted in whatever, it either resulted in me resign, or having to go to court, or having to actually explain to a district why I did X, Y, and Z, or family. So I think the first thing is for us to not put anything, to put blame on anyone else. But I think that the other thing that I had to look at was, prior to that, I had gotten to this exalted position, at a young age.
At a very young age.
At a very young age, and
early 30s.
Exactly, and I think in life we make mistakes. We
all
own up
make
to
mistakes.
them. We own to them.
Perfect.
But the worst thing, the reason why I study biographies and autobiographies is because I look at people who fall. I listen to a wonderful artist by the name of Jack Cure. Jack Cure to me is he was a hot dance hall reggae, He was given a chance by Barris Hammond.
Yes.
Barris Hammond is the one that brought him into the studio. He was actually introduced by Miguel Collins, who was Sizzler, one of my favorite entertainers.
Big up to Sizzler Kalanji.
But he actually was estranged from the Rastafarian community. People criticized him. He lost his friends. He was jailed and scrutinized on a rape charge. But one of the things Jack Cure did that was different, he had time. He recorded. He was allowed to record, and some of his recordings in prison in pain are some of the greatest recordings. Actually fed me as an individual.
Wow.
In our times of darkness and pain, when we can find the light and we can find some strength, we don't know who we could influence. So here's a man that doesn't know anything about me, but his music is touching me while I'm going through almost a similar circumstance. And at the same time, I get people all the time that say, "Wow, you have inspired me as well." But one of the things that I could not do was stay down. I knew too much. And so I said, listen, school to me, my education is a marketable skill. I can speak. So I decided to crisscross the state of Connecticut. I started to work as an activist. But
Let's talk about that now. Let's talk about that.
Sure.
And I do want to say that you're right. The great people all go through trials and tribulations.
Absolutely.
And they do fall.
Right.
And we read about them, we glorify them, but we don't know all of the pain that they suffer.
Absolutely.
Look at Mandela.
Absolutely.
Jail in all those years. Come on.
Absolutely.
So yes. And we know that you had some great moments in the school system in New Haven.
Right.
And talk about how this transformation happened with when you resigned and you got into political arena, because we know that you weren't you weren't really a big fan for people to listen to.
Exactly. Exactly. But I tell you something about people who are in the mud, people who are poor, disenfranchised. They don't care. They just want to know you care. So I reached out to some people that really were. I'd said to parents that children were underachieving.
So you reached out to families?
I went door to door, and I knocked on doors.
So after you resigned from that particular area, the school system, you went to another. Where you grew
yes,
up?
Bridgeport.
And went door to door. And
I was kind of. Let me say this: in Bridgeport, I was kind of embraced. I still worked in the community. I kind of.
Under what capacity? Was it an organization that you worked with? Organization.
I was always the activist. There was a group called the Connecticut African American Emancipation group, and I decided the person who was organizing came out of Waterbury, Jimmy Griffin, and decided to team up with him. And he needed somebody who had the oomph, kind of. So I found myself in Waterbury and New Haven. Almost every year I was traveling somewhere. But I had to keep income. So I decided that I would start a LLC, which I entitled MUCK MUDD LLC.
Why did you give it that name, MUCK MUDD?
Well, the name isn't new. It was used by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the 30s. Black people couldn't pronounce Muhammad, so they would say things like MUCK MUDD, and he had to go under aliases because he was on the run from the KKK government, whatever, because he's working for black people. Very militant organization, and so the name, I looked at it, I said, wow. people are in the mud. And I said, the first man, Adam, according to the Quran and Bible, was fashioned out of dirt, out of the mud. I'm reshaping myself. And often when people
Muck mud is because you felt that you were at the bottom.
At the bottom, and I said, wow. But there's also in politics called mudslinging, when people throw mud on you and muddy your character. And I said, wow, women use mud on their faces, but they take it off, and then after the mud comes off, your face shines. But there's also a verse in the Quran that says, it says that they will hurl, negativity. It says, woe to the slander, to the defamer who throws, slander after you, and that after a while that what they throw after you will become seek to throw slander after you. Woe to the defender who seeks to amass wealth, but they think that their wealth will make them abide, but they will be hurled into a crushing disaster. So people who throw slander, throw mud, and they think they're building themselves up by belittling you. But sooner or later, they'll find that the same dirt that they throw, they'll find themselves in it.
Well, Christianity,
right.
who cast the first stone?
Right, exactly.
So
exactly. The
message.
Exactly. The message is the same as Jesus said to the person who was sinning. Those without sin be the first to cast the stone. So hurling mud and throwing stones, I took it, and I think, Bob Marley talked about those who the stone that the builders refused from the biblical verse have become the head cornerstone. So people I felt rejected, but the people that needed help in math, the children in reading, I had so many children. I was working 7-hour days, 7 days a week out of my car.
In this organization to help kids.
Yes, MUCK MUDD. And so parents were saying, wow, my children's grades are going up. And the word got out. And I was exhausted, so I had to start hiring people. Let me back up a little bit. I
met, to get the funding and all that.
Yeah, I met an amazing woman who was a counselor, who I was seeing at the time, was in counseling.
Keep it real.
And I have put a plug in for her because she helped me. Her name was Lisa Slade. Okay. And Lisa Slade introduced me to her friend who was another therapist, but a daughter who needed help in school, because she was very smart and she felt she was being held back, so she needed advancement. That child who's up there but needs furthering, and so became my business partner. Her name is Catherine McGee. So we teamed up together with the therapeutic approach, the educational approach. We were able to leverage
and your leadership approach.
And my leadership approach. I actually went back to school at that time for master's in counseling, which I haven't finished, but I decided to go back because I thought that counseling should be merged with education. You're just one of those
people that just love to learn, like me. Just love to learn.
That's right. Yeah. So we decided to get up to work together.
Yeah.
And after a while, we got out of Connecticut Avenue. We had almost 100 children coming twice a week. Then we got calls from New Haven to Stanford. So now our business is growing, which we're still business partners, so we have a place in Fairfield. But what happened was parents wanted me to go advocate with them in the same school system that I just come out of.
Right.
So I was called to the city of New Haven to advocate for a child, and was getting ready to be put out of school, and I was able to advocate and keep him in. Was happened to be a King Robinson child.
It works. Hi, King Robinson.
And in Central and Harding and Bassett. It's just every day there was a different school. So I ended up working from 7 in the morning to about 7 at night, but at the same time, I went to schools with groups like Connecticut Against Violence, Big Up King Osei, which I'll be doing a presentation at his. He has a back to school summit with people like Steve Perry and a lot of other people will be there. I think he's the keynote, and they're doing workshops, and I'm one of the presenters. I went to schools with him. Mayor will be there. I guess they said that the mayor was going to give an award tomorrow for me working with them.
What city?
This is in Bridgeport. This is Friday.
It sounds like Bridgeport has been good to you for the most part.
Bridgeport has been very good. But, Connecticut is so small that once you've come out of something and you've earned your way, you start getting calls from Hartford and Stanford. So I'm actually back in the same community, which is New Haven. We're growing. We've right within the last 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to have to get a place, a MUCK MUDD LLC, small.
That's awesome,
facility
Kevin.
in New Haven.
That's amazing.
Going back,
Mr. Muhammad?
Right to the same city again. So I just thank God that this is all happening.
So, okay. We kind of graveled through some tough questions,
We did.
and you did a really good job with that. So kudos to you with that. Now, say this your organization MUCK MUDD just expands and explodes in New Haven. Right. How does that work now, Mayor? And being that you used to work in the system, or is it now new mayor and a new vision and a new fresh face, brand new? Like how is that perceived, and how will that work?
The beauty of what I do is that I don't work for any city municipality. I'm self-employed, and I work for the parents. So there are no laws stipulating. I've been through my attorney, and when I showed up in the city of New Haven, I was advocating for a child. And I said, he said, as far as I'm concerned, there's no stipulation that you cannot go into a school, that you can't go. So I'm very free. I'm very free to go. I have nothing. I wanted to go and work in a school district, I could do that. Everything's discretion. And politically, it's who you know, not what you know in some places. So if you know a superintendent and the superintendent thinks you're dynamic and dynamite, he utilizes or she utilizes your services, and you become a contractor. You become subcontracted. It just is what it is. And if you have a product that will benefit their children, they have to look at that.
That's right.
And I think the children that I serve and the parents are my best advocates, and they speak loud.
Let's talk about some of your achievements. You talked about how the scores went up, and this is blowing up. Everyone's coming to your serve for yours because you are a man of education, and you believe in it, and you want to see transformation. This is what you've been about since high school,
right? And
embedded from you were little, listening to Bob Marley,
right.
Now, talk about that. Talk about what vision you have for MUCK MUDD, and let's go there. I'm going to bombard you with like 3 questions.
There are 3 arms of MUCK MUDD. And it's funny because when I was kind of lowly employed, I had a chance to walk on the beach and meditate, which I practice as a practitioner of meditation, and believe in transcendental experience and coming up with ideas when you're still. And the 3 things that came to me was that MUCK MUDD was supposed to have children, advocate, and also educate and tutor. The second arm, I'm supposed to also be inspirationally speaking, inspiring people, not so much politically, but kind of like an inspirational speaker, sort of what Les Brown and others do, whether it's spiritual or not necessarily educational in terms of reading and writing.
Okay, so let's go back to the student achievement. That's where we were.
Right.
Just give us a figure of scores or the improvement, the scale of improvement.
When I go into a school to advocate for a child, I meet with the principal, the assistant principal, teachers, teacher leaders. We go over data. It depends on the age group. If it's kindergarten to 3rd grade reading, DRA, district reading assessment, there's certain scores, certain benchmarks. Right. So I work very carefully. We go in, we come up with a strategy. There's a release sign from the parent to the school to communicate with me. I communicate with the teachers. We come up with, at MUCK MUDD, every child has a folder. Every child has a plan. And if they're low in maybe math fluency and adding and subtracting, we drill them until we get them up. We also have assessment programs ourselves, Ames Web. We utilize RAS Kids. We utilize all kinds of websites. By the time we're finished, we understand that child's going to be ready. I have tutors. They may not be intricately involved like I am.
And the funding comes directly from the parents, or do you get funding from the government?
No government funding, which I'm glad, because I can speak like I want to speak and do. I'm not closing government funds, but I haven't had any. It comes directly from the parents.
What about the parents who are not able to afford it? Especially we know that most of these kids are from poverty.
Parents who are not able to afford it, what we've been able to do, because my partner's a licensed professional counselor, is we say, okay, the families is in challenge. Would you be willing to be part of a service and link up a therapeutic approach? Meaning that my partner is able to, we come up with a plan. And because the plan involves the child holistically, mind,
Right.
body, then we're allowed to bill. And I won't
You don't have to tell
exclude
us-
the details.
Yeah, because that's your secret.
Exactly.
But the parent, you mean, so they will do services for your
Right. They get a certain amount of sessions,
I see.
and they're allowed to assist them.
So they're not actually working for you, the parents. Is that what you're saying? That's what I'm thinking. That you're saying that they come to you, they would have work out something, they're actually doing some type of a community service. So
No. They're actually
to earn their weights for their child to get
no community service. They're
not
absolutely
community service, but MUCK MUDD services.
they're actually able to utilize their insurance benefit because of the fact that my
Gotcha.
partner we have a whole service, and so that. Because of the work that because of the work that President Obama has done with insurance companies, we're able to bill. and we could get paid, service the child, and work it out according to a family's income and what their insurance.
So
service
your business is blooming, and we only have about 3 minutes.
Okay.
And you knew it was going to be great. Didn't I tell you it was going to be fantastic?
You
You're
did
gonna
say that.
I told you. And now you're a principal again.
I am.
You have your own business
Right.
that you're leading, and it's exploding now in 2 locations.
Right.
And you're now a principal.
Right. Which is temporary. They asked me to stay on
Principal and
of Love
I looked
Christian Academy.
Right. And this school which is only 7 to 1. And now, according to the data that I looked at, 7 students to 1 teacher.
No,
Roughly?
no, it can be, but there are grades that are a little higher.
Not
But
too
it
much
is.
higher,
It shouldn't be more than 11 or 12 to 1.
which is great.
yes, small
In
classroom
comparison
sizes.
to where I've worked, where it's 20, I had 28 students.
Absolutely.
And some.
But it is growing daily. Because every time I go out in the community, a parent asks me, "Do we have room? Do we have?" So it's growing daily. I'm getting calls that parents want to come and be a part of the school.
So why is it a temporary position for you to be principal?
I was asked by CEO.
See, friends, CEOs and business are
Right.
all over the school system. It's the business.
At that time, he works very closely with Steve Perry, and he asked me would I help him do a charter school. And in New Haven, I had been meeting with male educators. I wanted to do an all-male school because of the challenges that black males face. And when he said all-male, I said, wow, I want to be a part. But I need a principal. I need an administrator. So we wrote the charter. And because there's so many charters that were going through at the time, Greater Oaks and Capital Prep, we didn't get it. But he needed a principal of the school, which is Love Christian Academy.
Which is not all male.
No, it's male, female.
Co-ed.
It's co-ed. And I said I would do it until he found someone. But it was going so well, he decided to stay on this year. But I told him this year, because I'm expanding in my business, I may, and I have other opportunities, I may not stay.
Do you like what you do there?
I love what I do. But I also love more of the freedom of entrepreneurship and moving from
Would
city
you like to shout out
city.
anyone and give anybody any shout outs as we close out? It's been such a phenomenal educational experience with you.
Right.
With brilliance in your aura.
Well, yeah, my mom and my dad, my mother Lorraine Richards, my father Gladstone Campbell. I'd like to shout out Cherie Baldwin.
Hi, Cherie.
I'd like to shout out, everybody.
I know she's like,
there's
right
so
now.
many police, Lisa Slade. Give a shout out to CAV, all of the people in the community who rallied behind me. Kenneth Mose Jr., all of those who are from Kingsley Osei, Steve Nelson. So many people that I could really thank. All of the educators at MUCK MUDD LLC. There's so many people that I have to thank for this moment.
Dexter Blake for allowing you to interview
Absolutely.
on the CHYNA NICOLE Show because
Absolutely.
he's paying the bills.
Absolutely.
His fans are paying the bills. so I say.
Absolutely. And also you. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity, friendship and networking. It's absolutely a wonderful experience.
Well, thank you so
Right.
much. How can people get in touch with you, Mr. Muhammad?
Well,
Kevin Muhammad.
They can go through my website, which is muckmudd.info. That's muckadd.info. They can email. That's muck.mudd@yahoo.com. They could also call my business line, which is area code 203-440-5170. That's 203-440-5170. One last shout out to my daughter Mariam Muhammad, who started high school. It was a private high school. She started in 9th grade this week.
Shout out, sweetie.
So she's just started.
Thank you so much for being a part of our show on 101.5 FM, the CHYNA NICOLE Show with Kevin Muhammad. God bless you.
Because if you win other way, you have to fight again.